I can't watch you destroy our family anymore, the words burst from Emily, and in that instant, she knew there was no taking them back. The silence that followed was thicker than the morning smog over Los Angeles. In their hillside home in Pasadena, a house where everything, from the marble countertops to the neatly trimmed lawn, screamed success, a weight settled into the air, heavy enough to crush even California brick walls. Mark stood by the sink, still in his suit, tie loosened after 8 hours at the office. His usually calm, slightly weary face was now twisted as if struck not by words, but by a fist. He turned slowly toward his wife, and in his eyes, Emily saw not anger, but something worse, disappointment. Deep, old, accumulated over years. "What do you mean?" he asked quietly, almost a whisper. "You know exactly what I mean," she replied, gripping her mug of cold coffee. "You leave at 7 in the morning and come back at 9 at night. You don't see Sam crying himself to sleep. You don't hear Liza asking why Daddy's busy again. You just disappear. And then you wonder why I yell at the kids, why there's no warmth in this house." Mark sighed, running a hand over his face. "I work, Emily. I provide for you. Do you think this is easy for me? I'm not on vacation. I'm not doing yoga or getting spa treatments. I'm where I need to be." "But where should a father be?" she shot back. "Not in Sunday Zoom meetings or mandatory business trips, but here. With us. With your children. With a wife who's felt alone in her own home for 2 years." He fell silent. Outside, a car passed, its music briefly slicing through the tension before silence returned. This wasn't their first fight, and it likely wouldn't be their last. But that night, something truly broke. The Carter family lived like millions of others in America, in a mortgaged house, with 2 cars in the garage, Netflix and Disney Plus subscriptions, and a Whole Foods membership. They had 2 kids, Sam, 8, and Liza, 5, a dog named Buddy, the illusion of stability and the reality of constant strain. Everything looked perfect until the front door closed and real life began. Their conflicts rarely exploded loudly. More often, they accumulated like dust on shelves no one bothered to clean. Small resentments, unspoken words, exhaustion, envy of other families, perfect Instagram photos, all of it built an invisible wall between husband and wife. Emily worked as a freelance editor for online publications. The job let her stay home with the kids, but paid inconsistently. She often felt less significant, especially when Mark came home talking about bonuses, new projects, and investor meetings. She didn't envy his success, but she longed for him to notice her efforts. To see how she put the kids to bed, cooked dinner, mopped floors, and helped Sam with math she barely remembered from school. And Mark. Mark was the textbook product of the American dream, the son of Mexican immigrants who grew up in a poor Oakland neighborhood, fought his way through college, internships, sleepless nights, and endless interviews. He'd built everything himself. Now, at the peak of his tech career, he felt he had to hold on to that success at all costs, because failure wasn't just losing a job. It was returning to where he started. And he'd sworn he'd never go back. But the price of that obsession kept rising. And Emily and the kids were the ones paying it. The morning after the fight, icy politeness filled the house. Mark left for work without a word. Emily didn't kiss him goodbye. The children sensed the tension. Sam grew irritable, and Liza clung to her mother all day. At lunch, Emily got a text from her friend Kate. "You okay?" Mark looked like he'd just been fired last night. Emily replied briefly, "I don't know. Just tired." Kate was one of the few people Emily trusted. They'd been friends since school, and Kate had long noticed how Emily was losing herself in the role of perfect wife and mother. Once, she'd said bluntly, "You've become background noise. You're there, but you're not really there." Emily had laughed then, but inside, it ached. That evening, Mark came home earlier than usual, without warning. Emily was tucking Liza in. When she saw him in the doorway of the nursery, she froze for a second. "Hey," he said softly. "Hey," she replied, not looking at him. "Liza," spotting her dad, squealed with joy. "Daddy, are you sleeping at home tonight?" Mark smiled, the first genuine one in a week. "Yes, baby. I'm home tonight." He leaned down, kissed her forehead, stroked her hair. Emily watched him, and something sharp pricked her chest. Pain, hope, something indefinable. After the kids fell asleep, they sat in the kitchen. No coffee, no wine, just Saturday. "I've been thinking about what you said," Mark began. "And you're right. I disappear. But not because I don't love you. Because I'm afraid." "Afraid of what?" "Of losing everything. Of going back to where I was. I never want my kids to know what it's like to stand in a food line or wear hand-me-downs." Emily looked at him, and suddenly understood. His fear was as real as her loneliness. "But you're not there anymore, Mark. You're not in Oakland. You're here. You have a home. A family. We're not asking you to quit your job. We're just asking to be present. Even for 5 minutes a day. Even just to look at us." He nodded. Paused. "I've been thinking about leaving my current job. There's an offer at another company, less pay, but more time. Flexible schedule." Emily hadn't expected that. She'd thought he'd say, "I'll try to get home earlier," or "I'll take Saturday off." Not this. "You're serious?" "Yes. I realize that if I lose you, I lose everything that truly matters." The next week passed in fragile balance. Mark really did come home earlier. He ate dinner with the family, played with the kids, even helped Emily clean, something he hadn't done in 2 years. But the conflicts didn't vanish. They just changed shape. One evening, Sam threw a tantrum because he refused to brush his teeth. Exhausted after a long day, Emily raised her voice. Mark stepped in. "Emily, don't yell at him. He's just a kid." "And where were you when he was crying last night because he couldn't fall asleep?" she snapped. "Don't tell me how to be a mother if you're never here." Mark stepped back. But that familiar disappointment flickered in his eyes again. "Later, after the kids were asleep," he said. "I'm trying. But you won't give me a chance." "Because I don't believe it'll last," she admitted. "You've tried before. Then you vanished on another business trip, gone for weeks." He sighed. "Maybe we should see a family therapist?" Emily was surprised. Mark had always believed therapists are for the weak. But now he looked at her with raw, honest pain. "Okay," she said. "Let's try." The first session with their family counselor, Dr. Lee, was brutal. They voiced resentments they'd buried for years. Emily spoke of feeling invisible. Mark talked about pressure, fear of falling short, and how he felt like a failed father. Dr. Lee didn't judge. She simply helped them listen. "Conflict doesn't destroy a family," she said at the end of the session. "Avoiding it does. If you stop arguing, it means you've stopped caring." Emily and Mark exchanged a glance, for the first time in a long while, without anger. 2 months passed. Mark really did change jobs. His salary dropped by 25%, but he was home by 6. Sometimes he even made it to bedtime stories. Emily started a writing course. She'd always dreamed of writing a book. Mark supported her, even offered to pay for the classes. Fights still happened. But now they ended in conversation. Sometimes in hugs. Sometimes in tears. But always with an attempt to understand. One morning, as Mark got Liza ready for preschool and Emily made breakfast, Sam suddenly asked, "Mom, are you and Dad not fighting anymore?" "Sometimes we still do," she answered honestly. "But now we know how to make up." "Didn't you before?" "Before, we forgot that we loved each other more than we were mad." Sam thought for a moment, then walked over and hugged his dad's leg. "I love you too, Dad." Mark looked down. His eyes glistened. The Carters' life didn't become perfect. In America, as everywhere, family isn't the absence of conflict, but the willingness to walk through it together. It's not Instagram perfect photos, but tired eyes in the morning, dishes in the sink, and the daily effort to hear each other through the noise of ordinary life. But now, when Emily watched Mark tuck Sam in, she no longer saw the man destroying our family. She saw a man who was afraid, who made mistakes, but who kept trying. And that was enough. Because love isn't the absence of arguments. It's the choice to stay even when you want to leave. Especially then. And in that choice lies the heart of family.